You ever see two cops show up at your door, and instead of slapping on cuffs, they snap to attention and salute? That happened at my house because my neighbor tried to use the police to force my wife into an HOA, and the look on her face when it backfired, I'll never forget it. Act 1. The conflict begins. 6 months ago, life was supposed to calm down. My wife Helen had just retired from the military after 20 years, and we bought a little house on Maple Street. A place with a big backyard, plenty of sunlight, a quiet street, her dream spot to finally relax and grow vegetables. What we didn't realize was that our home sat right on the edge of a homeowners association. Thanks to some old grandfather clause from 1987, our property was exempt. We thought nothing of it, until Linda Walsh showed up. Linda was 53, recently divorced, and apparently decided her new life's purpose was playing queen of the HOA. She worked as a legal assistant, which meant she thought she knew everything about property law. At first, she seemed polite enough, smiling, introducing herself, but behind her eyes was this sharp, calculating intensity. I should have trusted my gut that day. Her obsession with community standards became obvious fast. She started dropping questions that felt less like neighborly chit-chat and more like an interrogation. What does Helen do now? How's she adjusting, that sort of thing? Turns out Linda had Googled my wife's name, found some vague articles about veterans struggling after service, and decided Helen was her perfect target. Someone she could pressure into the HOA under the disguise of structure and support. The day Linda made her move, I came home to find Helen sitting at the kitchen table with a massive 47-page binder spread out like she was preparing a briefing. I asked what it was, and she looked up calm but cold. "Mandatory HOA membership packet," she said. $2,000 initiation fee. Full compliance with every rule. Her voice didn't waver, but I could hear the irritation under it. She had already told Linda our deed clearly excluded us from HOA jurisdiction. But Linda wasn't taking no for an answer. Over the next week, Linda fired off compliance notices that looked official but were completely bogus. Helen answered each one like she was dismantling an enemy's playbook, property surveys, city codes, all perfectly documented. Watching her in action was like watching a chess master move against a rookie who only knew how the pawns worked. Me. I was angry. I wanted to storm over, slam my fist on the table, tell Linda to leave us alone. But Helen just smirked and said, "Sweetheart, let her dig her own hole. Best victories come when your enemy defeats themselves." I didn't fully get it at the time, but oh man, she was right. Act 2. Escalation and the turning point. Linda wasn't used to being challenged. Instead of backing off, she doubled down. First, she accused us of letting Helen's vegetable garden creep onto HOA property. I literally watched from the kitchen window as she marched up with a tape measure waving papers like she was some kind of inspector. Helen walked out with her own certified survey and permits. Game over. Linda backed away, humiliated but not defeated. Then came the so-called community standards meeting at her house. She invited everyone from our street, framing it as a friendly discussion about safety and property values. We knew it was a trap, but Helen insisted we go. The room was thick with tension. A few neighbors parroted Linda's lines about integration and protocols, but Helen stood up calm as stone and tore every argument apart with logic and documented exemptions. By the end, half the room looked at Linda like she'd lost her mind. I remember thinking maybe, just maybe, this was over. But it wasn't. Late one night, I walked into the kitchen to find Helen hunched over legal documents cross-referencing HOA statutes with city codes. It was 2 a.m. She looked up tired but determined. I asked, half joking, half serious, "Honey, what did you do in the military?" She gave me this soft smile, but her eyes were steel. "Leadership training. You learn to handle difficult people when other lives depend on you." And that's when the doubt hit me. I'll admit it, there were moments I wanted to quit. Moments I thought maybe Linda's right. Maybe it'd be easier to just pay the fee, join the stupid HOA, stop all this madness. I even suggested it once, voice low like I was ashamed of myself. Helen looked at me calm, steady, and said, "If we cave, she wins. And then she'll do it to the next family. And the next. That's not how I live." That was my turning point. I realized this wasn't just about us. It was about standing up to a bully who'd been tormenting people for years. Linda's desperation escalated into something darker. She created a fake legal group letterhead, sent us fraudulent notices claiming the HOA could forcibly annex our property. Helen saw right through it, reported it to the authorities, and kept building her file. She was patient, deliberate, like she knew exactly where this was headed. Then came the night I overheard her on the phone. "Dad-neighbor situation requiring police response," she said. I froze. Helen never talked about her dad. Never. But here she was, cool as ice, warning him that Linda might try to weaponize law enforcement. That's when she opened the display cabinet in our living room. For 2 years I'd only ever seen it covered with a cloth. This time she pulled it back, revealing rows of medals, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and right in the center, the Medal of Honor. My knees nearly buckled. "Helen, 20 years. Medal of Honor. And you never told me?" She just took my hand, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "I wanted a normal life with you. But I won't be forced into anything in my own home." That's when I knew. Tomorrow was going to be war. Act 3. The climax and justice. Morning came. Linda had been pacing all night. I saw her through her window rehearsing what she thought would be her victory speech. At exactly 9:15 she made the call. Reported my wife as an unstable veteran, refusing community integration, possibly dangerous, needing intervention. 2 squad cars rolled down Maple Street. I swear my heart stopped. Linda was at her window phone, ready to record, smiling like the devil herself. The officers walked up, Riley young and nervous. Sergeant Brooks, older, steady, the kind of guy who's seen it all. I opened the door with sweaty palms. "Officers, can I help you? We received a welfare check request regarding veteran resident Helen Thompson," Riley said. His eyes scanned the neat house, the calm yard. Nothing matched the story they'd been fed. Then Helen stepped into the doorway. She wasn't in uniform, just jeans and a t-shirt, but her presence filled the air. Shoulders squared, gaze direct, calm confidence radiating like a shield. She answered their questions with precision, laying out facts, disproving every rumor. That's when Linda couldn't stand it anymore. She stormed across the lawn, waving her arms. "Officers, I'm the one who called. She refuses to join our HOA. She's trained. Dangerous families are at risk." Her voice was shrill, desperate, and the more she talked, the more ridiculous it sounded. Helen didn't flinch. She pulled out her military ID, handed it to Sergeant Brooks. He read it, paused, and his eyes widened. He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, confirm identity, Helen Thompson." The reply crackled back. "Confirmed. Sergeant Major, Medal of Honor recipient, exemplary service record." Silence, thick, heavy, electric. Then Sergeant Brooks stood at attention, heels clicking together, and snapped a perfect salute. "Good morning, Sergeant Major. Thank you for your service, ma'am." Officer Riley followed instantly, hand to forehead, eyes sharp with respect. I looked over at Linda. Her jaw literally dropped. She whispered, "Medal of Honor. They're saluting her for refusing to join the HOA." Her face drained of color, disbelief written all over her. Neighbors peeked out. Some stepped onto their lawns, watching 2 cops salute the woman Linda had tried to humiliate. But it wasn't over. Brooks turned back to Linda, voice clipped and professional. "Ma'am, filing false reports about veterans is a serious offense." And then the final blow arrived, a black SUV pulling up, lights flashing. The door opened and out stepped Chief Thompson. Tall, commanding, every bit the man who runs the department. He took one look at Helen and his face softened. "Hello, sweetheart. Everything all right here?" Linda's knees nearly buckled. Her voice cracked. "Chief's daughter. Medal of Honor. I was just trying to protect the community." Nobody was buying it. The officers laid out the evidence Helen had been collecting for months. Emails, fake letters, harassment, patterns, witness statements. Right there in front of the entire neighborhood, Linda was read her charges. False police reporting harassment of a veteran, abuse of emergency services. And then I watched almost in slow motion as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. The self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, the woman who tried to bully us into submission, was led away, humiliated, exposed, and powerless. Closing line lesson. Real power doesn't come from intimidation. It comes from service, sacrifice, and the truth.